Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Liz, and today I'm going to show you the process of me going through a watercolor tutorial by Anna Mason while discussing what art means to me. This tutorial is free on her website, so if you're interested in doing this pair, I will link her site below and you can try it for yourself. And if you're good at following directions, and honestly I am not, this tutorial is easier than it looks. Plus, there are only 4 paint colors you need, and I only use 2 brushes throughout the whole thing. So if you need a variety of brushes, that's fine, but I was only using what I had on hand. She also recommends using artist quality paints, but in those particular colors, I only had student quality. One of them was even Reeves, which is like a $10 for 18 pack. They're really cheap. So in addition, I highly recommend using hot press paper for a piece like this because of its smoother texture, but it can be done on cold press. So first off, I want to apologize profusely for the number of times my head was in the way during this video. I can't, however, apologize for my hair. There's no excuse for that rat's nest. I have naturally pretty wavy hair, and I don't brush it very often because if I do, it turns into an afro. At any rate, there were times where I was trying to get my eyes up close on what I was doing, and it unfortunately made my head get very much in the way. So going back to the topic at hand, art is undoubtedly very subjective. I don't think anyone would argue that at all. So this conversation will revolve around mostly what I perceive as good art, or at least visually pleasing to me. So a long time ago, I remember as a kid going on a field trip to an art museum and seeing a whole lot of art that I wasn't really interested in. It was mostly abstract, with the art curators standing around, stroking their little pointy beards, wondering over what this artist must have been going through, and oh, this piece shows his or her pain, and or joy, sadness, blah, blah, blah. I was just a kid looking at a canvas with one side painted blue, wondering how someone got paid to do that. So we moved into this other room that had a portrait in it, and it was done completely in graphite. And that was the first piece of art that I ever saw that was in realism style. It was really phenomenal, and I was in awe at how precise everything was. And when I first saw it, I thought it was a black and white photograph. It was that real. So I stared at it and stared at it, trying to find the lines that suggested it was made by graphite, and I just couldn't find it. So I wondered at the portrait, but there was a little preteen voice inside my head saying, man, that must have taken a very, very long time, when a photo would have just taken a few minutes to capture the same emotional depth and breadth of this image. And as a disclaimer, I love photography, but I suck at it, so there's definitely a skill to taking photos. My brother-in-law is a portrait photographer, and he's great at capturing people in very flattering ways. And another friend of mine is wonderful at taking interesting perspective photos of scenery and buildings. So my point is, I'm not saying photography is dismissible, just a different form of art. And at any rate, I was affected by the portrait, but not in a way I expected to be. So, as I stumbled through a few art classes as I got older, I tinkered with strange perspectives, surreal like drawings and illustrations with movement. I also loved oil painting. So I did a lot of oil paintings where I had the smooth, realistic like lines, but I deliberately made it look like a painting, not by making brushstrokes or anything like that, but by adding like maybe another copy of the same person in negative colors. I mean, kind of strange, but I did a portrait of Peter Gabriel like that, where I had one side of the canvas was the picture, and then the other side was like the negative colors of him. So when you look at it, you know, okay, well, that's not a photo, that's, a painting. But anyway, so in my adulthood, and after the advent of social media, I'm more exposed to the realism style because people are sharing what they do, and it's all wonderful. But I have no problem with this at all. It's just something I probably won't want to hang on my wall. And so there's a YouTuber, well, she's kind of everywhere, but Lisa Lockery has some great works where her pieces are realistic, but they are also surreal. So this breaks up my eye and tells me that this is fantasy, which is like visually pleasing to me. So if you're not familiar with her work, you should be. I will link her channel in my description. But she does have a lot of realism in her portfolio, which they're wonderfully done, and they're technically very good, but I really appreciate the surreal paintings just for the reasons, obviously they're paintings. But in my older years, although I'm still fascinated with realism, I still feel like there needs to be an element of fantasy to it. So if it looks just like a photo when I'm expecting a painting or a drawing, it kind of loses its allure to me. Now, if it were a photo, something kind of switches in my brain that makes me look at the image in a different way. So, in other words, if I see a frame painting of fruit that looks so real that it looks like a photograph, my eyes dismiss it as an eccentric hanging a photograph of fruit on the wall. And it's nothing against the artist or how skilled they are at making this realistic painting, because I know all too well how much time went into that piece of art. However, if it is a photo of fruit with some interesting shadows and light, then my perception changes. It's kind of more of a mental thing for me personally. And for our paintings, I kind of have to see the fakeness in it to be able to bask in its majesty. Now, you may be asking, like, but Liz, this pear is realistic. Well, yes, it is. I own the painting and I know it's not a photo because I did it. But my purpose for doing this tutorial was to gain those valuable techniques for lights and darks in watercolor, because watercolor is a tricky medium. These are still very important to me when I do my other watercolor paintings and give me ideas for texture and illusion. Another style that I can really appreciate is what most people would call loose styles, where the image is based off something real with the proper proportions and everything, but painted without strict adherence to the crisp lines, and letting the watercolor or acrylic or whatever it may be just do its thing. I am not good at this style, but I'm trying, and I've always been a perfectionist, just way too long to just let myself go. And it's the irony in my less than love for realism in paintings. It's just the way my brain works. But I will say I am picky about abstract art. I'm not a huge fan of anything Picasso did, and those strange paintings and sculptures I saw during my field trip were not exciting to me at all. When I was in college, my sculpture teacher took us to an art show with nothing but abstract stuff, and there was a box hanging from the ceiling with rubber balloons hanging from the bottom of it, or bottom of the box anyway. And my teacher was marveling at how great this piece was and that the balloons represented condoms. I don't think I ever rolled my eyes so hard. I was like thinking to myself, did you create this piece? Like, do you know what the artist was thinking behind this? It's kind of like when you're in high school English class and you're analyzing these books that like authors that aren't even alive anymore wrote, and you're trying to analyze like, oh, well, they were trying to illustrate this and that, and you're just like, shut up, you don't know what you're talking about, you didn't write that book, you have no idea. So anyway, that whole tour through the art show during that class was just laughable to me. But anyway, so if you like, you can leave a comment and let me know what art is to you, because I know what I like, but it won't be the same as what you like. And I know a lot of people love realism and they just strive to do the realism look, and that's wonderful, but it's just not something like, I mean, I'll do realism, but like I'm not going to hang the pear on my wall or anything like that. It's just kind of like, you know, I don't know. It's up to you. So anyway, if you want to leave a comment, just do that. All right, here is the finished painting. I hope you enjoyed watching the process despite my head getting in the way several times. But again, I will link her website so you can find the tutorial yourself in the description. And so if you are interested in subscribing, you can just click my portrait on the right, and then if you want to receive notifications of when I post, you can click on the bell. Anyway, so just join me next time whenever I post another artistic video, or you can join me on Sundays when I post soap making related videos. Bye!